The sound of glass breaking was the first thing I heard after I hit the floor. My wrist burned, my dress was soaked in red wine, and for a moment I couldn't even breathe. The room had gone silent, only the faint hum of music still playing in the background. Then I saw her. Vanessa. Standing over me with that expression she always wore when she wanted to look innocent. Eyebrows raised, lips pressed into a fake worried pout. "Oh my God, Madison. Are you okay?" "I swear, I didn't mean to," she stammered loudly, but her tone had that edge I knew too well. The kind that said she knew exactly what she'd done. Guests started whispering. Someone helped me up. Ethan rushed over, his face pale. I looked at him, waiting for him to ask what really happened, but he didn't. He just helped me to a chair, mumbling that it must have been an accident. His mother, Helen, came running next, fussing over Vanessa more than me. "It's not your fault, sweetheart," she said, rubbing Vanessa's back. "These things happen." I wanted to scream. It hadn't just happened. I felt the shove. It wasn't hard, but it was enough to make me lose balance while holding a full tray. I could still feel the pressure on my back. It wasn't a stumble, it was deliberate. The rest of the night was a blur. The staff cleaned up the mess, the guests went back to eating, and I sat there with an ice pack, pretending everything was fine. Vanessa kept glancing at me from across the room, smirking when she thought no one was looking. When the party ended, Ethan drove us home in silence. He didn't ask me a single thing about what happened. Not one word. When I finally spoke, he said, "Vanessa feels terrible, Madison. Don't make this into a big deal." I turned to him, my wrist throbbing. "You think I fell?" He shrugged. "It looked like an accident." That's when I realized I was alone in this. His family could do no wrong in his eyes. Vanessa was the golden one, always perfect, always innocent. I was just the outsider who never quite fit in. Lying in bed that night, I replayed everything. The way Vanessa offered to help me carry the tray, even though I said I could manage. The way she stood close behind me, pretending to fix her hair. And that moment, the quick shove, the gasp, the fake apology. It was all too smooth. Too rehearsed. I knew she wanted something. Maybe to make me look clumsy, maybe to make me the family embarrassment. But whatever it was, she picked the wrong night and the wrong person to mess with. My wrist hurt, but not as much as the betrayal. I promised myself that night I wouldn't let her get away with it. Whatever game she was playing, I'd find out the rules, and I'd beat her at it. Before everything fell apart, life seemed calm on the surface. Ethan and I had been married for 5 years, and to anyone looking from the outside, we looked like the perfect couple. We had a cozy home in Denver, not far from his parents, Robert and Helen. His sister Vanessa lived just a few blocks away, which meant we saw her more often than I wanted to. Vanessa was the center of their world. Every conversation somehow came back to her. She had the best job, the best clothes, the best friends. At family dinners, Helen would proudly tell stories about Vanessa's latest promotion, or how everyone at church adored her. When they talked about me, it was always in comparison. Madison makes a good pie too, or Madison's job is nice, but Vanessa's is so demanding. It was constant, like a soft background noise that never stopped. I used to smile through it. I told myself it didn't matter. I wasn't there to compete. But deep down it stung. It was the little things she said that got under my skin. Like when she'd look around my house and say, "It's so cute that you decorate yourself instead of hiring someone." Or when she'd compliment my clothes and then add, "It's amazing what you can do on a budget." She never raised her voice, never sounded openly cruel. That was her skill, every insult wrapped in sweetness. Ethan never noticed. He thought Vanessa was just teasing, that I was reading too much into things. Whenever I tried to explain, he'd laugh it off and say, "That's just how she is." But I saw the way she watched me, the way her smile faded the second others looked away. There was something darker behind it. The truth was, I'd never really felt accepted by Ethan's family. They were polite, yes, but always distant. Helen still introduced me to her friends as Ethan's wife, instead of by my name. Robert was kind but quiet, always following Helen's lead. And Vanessa, she made sure I always knew my place. I came from a working-class family. My parents ran a small diner. I worked my way through college, while Ethan came from money. His family never said anything directly about it, but I could feel it in every conversation. The way Helen would ask about my parents' business with a forced smile. The way Vanessa once joked that Ethan really married for love, not lifestyle. Still, I kept trying. I brought desserts to family gatherings, helped with planning events, remembered birthdays, and smiled even when I felt invisible. I wanted to belong. I wanted to believe that with time, they'd see me for who I was, not where I came from. But looking back now, I realize Vanessa had been setting the stage all along. Every fake smile, every small jab, every time she made me doubt myself, it was all part of her illusion. I just hadn't seen it yet. The night of Robert and Helen's 40th anniversary felt special at first. I had spent weeks helping Helen plan it, from the guest list to the flowers, to every little detail of the table setting. I wanted everything to be perfect, not just for them, but because I hoped maybe, finally, Helen would see how much I cared about being part of the family. The house looked beautiful, filled with soft light, laughter, and music. Guests kept complimenting the food and decorations, and for the first time in a while, I felt proud. Vanessa, of course, arrived fashionably late. She walked in wearing a sparkling silver dress that caught everyone's attention instantly. Heads turned. Conversations paused. Helen's eyes lit up the second she saw her daughter. "There she is," she said, her voice full of joy. I stood by the bar, smiling politely, even though my stomach tightened. Vanessa gave me a hug that felt cold and said, "You did a nice job, Madison. It's cute." Then she turned to Helen and started talking about how busy her week had been. Within minutes, she had taken over the room. Later in the evening, it was time to serve champagne for the toast. The caterers were short-staffed, so I offered to help. Vanessa suddenly appeared beside me and said, "Oh, let me help too. You shouldn't have to do it all." I hesitated. Something about her tone didn't feel right, but with everyone watching, I couldn't say no. We both picked up trays. Hers was lighter. I noticed that immediately. She smiled at me too sweetly and said, "Just be careful. Those glasses look heavy." I forced a smile back and started walking toward the guests. The room was filled with laughter and clinking glasses. I was halfway across the floor when it happened. A sharp push from behind, not strong enough to throw me far, but just enough to make me lose my balance. I tried to steady myself, but the tray tilted. Glasses crashed to the floor, champagne splashing everywhere. I fell hard, my wrist twisting beneath me as pain shot through my arm. The sound of shattering glass echoed across the room, and everything went quiet. "Oh my God, Madison." Vanessa's voice rang out, high and panicked. "I didn't mean to, you just slipped." She knelt beside me, pretending to help, but her eyes said something else, satisfaction. Ethan rushed over, his face filled with confusion. He helped me up carefully, but before he could say anything, Helen appeared, frowning. "What happened here?" she asked, her tone sharp. Vanessa answered before I could. "It was my fault, Mom. I think I accidentally bumped into her. I feel awful." Helen sighed and looked at me like I was the one who'd ruined the night. "You should have been more careful, Madison," she said softly, but with that disappointed tone that cut deeper than any insult. As the staff cleaned up, I sat on a chair holding my wrist, watching Vanessa charm the guests again, pretending to be worried. That was when I knew this wasn't an accident. It was deliberate. And it was just the beginning. The days after the anniversary were worse than the night itself. My wrist was in a brace, the pain constant, but what hurt more was how everyone seemed to move on as if nothing had happened. Vanessa made sure the story spread exactly the way she wanted it to. According to her, I had slipped. She even told people she felt so guilty for being nearby when it happened. Everyone comforted her for having to see such a terrible fall. Helen called a few times, but not to check on me. She wanted to know if I was upset with Vanessa. "She's been so worried about you," she said softly. She didn't mean for any of it to happen. I bit my tongue, because what was the point? If I told her what really happened, she'd just defend Vanessa. That's how it always went. Ethan tried to stay neutral. He helped around the house, but whenever I brought up what happened, he'd say, "Let's not keep talking about it, Maddie. It's over." He hated conflict, and Vanessa knew it. She counted on him to keep quiet. And he always did. One morning, as I was watering the plants, I overheard Vanessa talking to our neighbor, Mrs. Parker, in the driveway. I couldn't hear every word, but I caught enough. "She's just clumsy, bless her heart. Always so dramatic about things." They both laughed. That laugh burned into me. My chest tightened, and I realized this wasn't carelessness. This was control. She wanted everyone to see me as unstable. And slowly, I began to see that it had been happening long before the accident. Little things I'd brushed off suddenly made sense. Like the time Helen's bracelet went missing at a family dinner. It was found in my handbag the next morning, and everyone assumed I must have picked it up by mistake. I swore I hadn't touched it, but Vanessa was the one who discovered it. She laughed it off, but her eyes were cold. Or the time my cake for Robert's birthday somehow ended up burned because the oven temperature had been turned up. Vanessa had been in the kitchen earlier that day. She'd smiled sweetly and said, "Maybe next time, let me handle desserts." The more I thought about it, the more I realized how carefully she had been building this image of me. The clumsy one, the overreacting one, the insecure one. It was subtle but effective. By the time the anniversary happened, everyone already believed I was the kind of person who would trip over her own feet. I started paying attention then. Watching, listening, keeping mental notes of her words and her timing. Vanessa wasn't careless. She was deliberate. Every move she made was to make me look weak or foolish. And that realization changed everything. I wasn't just angry anymore. I was awake. If she wanted a game, I was finally ready to play it. Only this time, I wasn't going to lose. A few weeks after the accident, Helen invited everyone over for dinner. She said she wanted to have a nice, calm family night. And I agreed, hoping maybe things would finally feel normal again. I even baked a pie and brought flowers for the table. For most of the evening, things were quiet. We talked about work, about Helen's garden, about Robert's golf game. Vanessa was there, of course, glowing as always, acting sweet and innocent like nothing bad had ever happened. I tried to keep my distance, staying polite, smiling when needed. But Vanessa couldn't help herself. She always needed attention. When dessert came out, she turned to the group and said with a laugh, "Maybe Madison shouldn't be the one serving tonight. We wouldn't want another accident, right?" The table erupted in laughter. Helen covered her mouth, giggling softly. Robert chuckled. Even Ethan laughed, just a quick laugh, but I saw it. I felt heat rise in my face. My hands trembled under the table. I looked at Ethan, hoping he'd say something, but he didn't. He just avoided my eyes. The room kept laughing, and for a second, I felt completely invisible. I excused myself, walked down the hallway, and locked myself in the guest bathroom. The moment the door clicked shut, I broke down. The tears came fast, not just from embarrassment, but from something deeper. I had spent years trying to fit in, trying to win their respect, and all it took was one cruel joke to remind me that I never truly belonged. They didn't see me as family. They never had. I looked at my reflection in the mirror, red eyes, shaking hands, forced smile gone. I asked myself why I kept letting them hurt me, why I kept hoping they would change. Vanessa had humiliated me again, and I just stood there. That hurt more than her words. I wasn't angry at her anymore. I was angry at myself for letting it happen. But sitting there, staring at myself, something shifted. The sadness started turning into something sharper, determination. If Vanessa wanted to play games, then fine. But I wasn't going to play by her rules anymore. I was done being her easy target. When I came out of the bathroom, no one even noticed I'd been gone. They were still laughing, still talking like nothing happened. I smiled, sat down, and quietly watched. I didn't argue, didn't defend myself. Instead, I paid attention. Every word, every glance, every fake smile. Over the next few days, I began writing things down, the comments, the strange coincidences, the small sabotages. I kept track of her lies, of who she said them to. I wasn't sure what I was going to do with it yet, but I knew one thing for sure. I was done being her pawn. She wanted a show? I'd give her one, and she'd never see it coming. It was a quiet afternoon when Vanessa decided to stop by. Ethan was at work, and I was home alone, folding laundry in the bedroom when I heard her knock. She smiled sweetly at the door, holding a box of muffins. "Just thought I'd check in on you," she said. Her tone was light, but her eyes scanned the house like she was searching for something. I forced a smile and let her in. After the accident, I'd installed small cameras around the house. Not because I expected another incident, but because I wanted to feel safe. They were discreet, barely visible, hidden among the shelves and picture frames. Ethan didn't even know about them. I told myself they were for security, but deep down, I knew I wanted to catch the truth if it ever showed up again. Vanessa chatted for a while, acting friendly, complimenting my new curtains, asking how my wrist was healing. But her questions were strange. She kept glancing around the living room, touching things that weren't hers, opening small drawers as if she was curious. "You keep things so tidy," she said, running her hand over the dining table. Her voice had that fake warmth again. I excused myself for a few minutes, pretending to take a phone call in the kitchen. From there, I could still see part of the living room. She thought she was alone. I watched quietly as she took out her phone and aimed it toward one of my open drawers, snapping a few pictures. Then she picked up a bottle of red wine from the counter and poured a small amount across my silk tablecloth. "Oops," she whispered, smirking. I froze. It was subtle, deliberate. She wiped part of it with a napkin and then left the mess, just enough to look careless, but not enough to be obvious. My stomach turned. She wanted to make it seem like I was the messy, careless one again, the same old pattern. When she noticed me returning, she smiled like nothing had happened. "I should probably head out," she said, picking up her purse. "Just wanted to see how you were doing." That evening, after she left, I sat on the couch and opened my laptop. My hands were shaking as I went through the camera footage. Every second confirmed what I had seen. The pictures, the wine, the smirk. There it was, clear as day. She wasn't just mean or jealous. She was trying to make me look bad, maybe even unstable. When Ethan came home, I didn't say anything yet. I wasn't ready. I needed to think. Later that night, Vanessa texted me. "Had a lovely visit. Sorry if I made a mess. I think I spilled something, silly me grinning face with sweat. That message sealed it. She knew what she was doing. I finally had proof. Not rumors, not feelings, not guesses. Real proof that she'd been manipulating everything. And for the first time since all of this began, I felt calm. Because now, I had what I needed to end it on my terms. Helen's birthday was coming up, and I knew it was the perfect opportunity. I told Ethan that I wanted to host the dinner at our house to make up for the anniversary mess. He seemed surprised but pleased. Helen loved the idea too, saying it would be nice to see that everything is fine now. Even Vanessa agreed, her face lighting up like she'd already planned how to take control of the night. I smiled politely, pretending everything was normal. Inside, I was already 2 steps ahead of her. In the week leading up to the dinner, I made sure everything was perfect. The house was spotless, the table settings were elegant, and the food was catered by the same company Helen loved. Every little thing was planned down to the smallest detail. I wanted there to be no excuses, no distractions, just the truth when it finally came out. And most importantly, I made sure the cameras were ready. I positioned one right near the dining area, angled perfectly to capture everything. Especially the serving table where the last accident had happened. This time, I wasn't going to be caught off guard. If Vanessa tried anything, it would be recorded crystal clear. When the evening arrived, everything went smoothly at first. Guests filled the house with laughter and conversation. Helen looked happy, surrounded by family and friends. Even Ethan seemed relaxed. I stayed calm, smiling, serving food, and keeping the energy light. Vanessa arrived late again, dressed in another sparkling dress, her perfume filling the room before she even entered. She handed Helen a gift and gave me a polite smile that didn't reach her eyes. Throughout the night, she kept circling me, hovering close, pretending to help. She made little comments like, "Wow, you really pulled this together, and good for you, Madison." I just nodded, refusing to give her any reaction. She thrived on getting under my skin. But not this time. After dinner, it was time for dessert and drinks. That's when Vanessa made her move. She walked over to the serving table, grabbed the tray of wine glasses, and turned to me with a grin. "Don't worry, I've got this." "Wouldn't want another slip-up, right?" she whispered, her voice low enough that only I could hear. My heart was pounding, but I kept my face calm. "Be careful," I said softly. She leaned in a little closer, that same fake smile plastered on her face. "Try not to embarrass yourself this time," she whispered. And that was her mistake. She thought I was still the same person, nervous, easy to provoke, desperate to fit in. But I wasn't. I'd learned how she operated, and I was ready. As she stepped forward to serve the guests, I watched her carefully. Every movement, every smirk. The cameras were rolling, and for once, I didn't feel scared. I felt steady. This time, I wasn't waiting for her to push me. I was waiting for her to push herself, right into the truth. The moment came faster than I expected. Vanessa had the tray in her hands, moving toward me with that same confident smirk she always wore when she thought she had the upper hand. Everyone was watching, laughing lightly, unaware of the tension building in the air. Helen was smiling, Ethan was mid-conversation, and for a split second, everything looked normal, almost peaceful. But I could see it in Vanessa's eyes. She was about to do it again. As she came closer, she reached out toward me, pretending to pass a glass, but her body shifted the same way it had that night of the accident. I recognized the movement instantly, the subtle lean, the twist of her wrist, the fake stumble. This time, I was ready. I stepped aside smoothly. She missed her mark completely and stumbled forward, the tray tilting. The glasses rattled and one fell, clattering to the floor but not breaking. A few guests gasped. The laughter stopped. Vanessa straightened up quickly, her face red, eyes darting toward me. "Oh my God," she said, forcing a laugh. "Madison, why did you move so suddenly?" But I didn't answer. I just looked at her for a moment, calm, silent. Then I turned, walked to the living room, and picked up the TV remote from the table. My hands didn't shake this time. My voice didn't tremble. "Actually," I said quietly, "I think everyone should see something." The room grew still. I pressed play. The television came to life, showing the footage from the hidden camera, the one from the anniversary night. The quality was clear, the sound crisp. On screen, everyone could see it. Vanessa's face twisted into a sneer, her whispering something cruel under her breath, and then that deliberate shove. The tray crashing. My body falling. Her satisfied smirk right afterward. For a moment, nobody moved. The sound of the tray from the footage echoed through the living room like a haunting memory. Then the silence that followed felt heavier than any words. Helen's hand flew to her mouth. Her eyes were wide with shock, her face pale. "Vanessa," she whispered, barely believing what she saw. Ethan just stood there frozen, staring at the screen, then at me, then back again. He didn't say a word. Vanessa's expression shifted from shock to panic. This isn't what it looks like," she stammered. I was trying to help her. "The angle, it makes it look bad." I turned to face her, my voice steady and low. "You said it was an accident," I said. "But accidents don't usually come with smiles." Her jaw dropped. The room stayed silent. Even the guests who barely knew us were staring, unsure what to say or do. Helen finally spoke, her tone cold and trembling. "Vanessa, how could you?" Vanessa's lips parted, but no sound came out. She looked around, desperate for someone to defend her, but no one did. Ethan kept his distance. Helen turned away. The night that was supposed to be full of celebration had turned into something else entirely. The moment the truth finally took over. And for the first time, I didn't feel small or humiliated. I just felt free. The house was so quiet that night, you could almost hear the clock ticking on the wall. After the footage ended, no one moved. Vanessa stood frozen, her eyes wide, her lips trembling as if she still couldn't believe what had just happened. Then, slowly, she started to speak, her voice shaky and defensive. "It's not real," she said quickly. "You edited that, Madison. You made it look like I pushed you." Her words hung in the air, desperate and hollow. But no one believed her. Ethan's face was pale, his jaw clenched. He couldn't even look at her. Helen sat on the couch, her hands pressed against her mouth, whispering, "Oh my God," over and over. "Vanessa," Helen said finally, her voice breaking, "how could you do something like that? To your brother's wife?" Vanessa shook her head, trying to smile through the panic. "Mom, please, you know me. You know I wouldn't." But Helen's tears said everything. She finally saw it, the years of subtle cruelty she had brushed off as teasing. The way Vanessa always managed to make me look bad while playing the innocent one. The truth had been right in front of her, and she'd ignored it. Ethan walked out of the room without a word. When he came back, his expression was hard, distant. "I can't believe this," he said quietly, almost to himself. "All this time, I thought Madison was overreacting." Vanessa tried to reach for him, but he stepped back. "Don't," he said firmly. And then he left the room again. The night ended in silence. No shouting, no more excuses. Just a heavy, painful quiet that filled every corner of the house. The next few days were strange. Vanessa avoided everyone, refusing to answer calls. Helen stayed in her room most of the time, too ashamed to face me. Ethan tried to act normal, but the tension was thick between us. Every time I looked at him, I saw guilt, not just for what his sister had done, but for never standing up for me when it mattered most. A week later, I heard from one of Helen's friends that Vanessa's fiancé had called off their engagement. Word about what happened had spread fast, and he wanted no part in the drama. Vanessa's perfect image had finally cracked, and the people who used to praise her began to distance themselves. Helen called me one morning, her voice soft and shaky. She said she was sorry for not seeing the truth, sorry for how she'd treated me. I could tell she meant it, but the damage was already done. Ethan came to me one evening, holding my hand, his eyes full of regret. "I'm so sorry," he said. "I should have believed you. I should have protected you." I looked at him for a long moment before replying. "I know you mean that, but right now I need time to think. I need space." That night, I packed a small bag, quietly folded my clothes, and left. I went to my sister's house, where the air felt lighter. For the first time in a long while, I could breathe again. The house I left behind was full of memories, some beautiful, some painful, but it no longer felt like home. As I lay in the guest room that night, I didn't cry. I just stared at the ceiling, feeling a strange mix of sadness and relief. The truth was out. The lies had collapsed. And even though everything had fallen apart, somewhere deep inside, I finally felt like I could start over. Months passed before I heard from anyone in Ethan's family again. Life had started to feel normal, peaceful even. I spent time at my sister's place, focused on my job, and slowly began to heal. The quiet was good for me. I didn't have to look over my shoulder, didn't have to force smiles or pretend everything was fine. For the first time in years, I could just be myself. One morning, a letter arrived. The handwriting on the envelope stopped me cold. It was Helen's. For a moment, I considered not opening it. Part of me wanted to move on and never look back. But curiosity won. I sat down, tore it open, and began to read. Her words were raw and honest. She said she'd spent months thinking about everything. The anniversary night, the footage, the years before that when she'd ignored the way Vanessa treated me. She admitted she had failed me, that she had chosen to believe the daughter she loved instead of the truth staring her in the face. "You didn't deserve that, Madison," she wrote. "And I hope someday you can forgive me for not seeing you, really seeing you, when you needed it most." I didn't cry, but I felt something heavy lift from my chest. It wasn't forgiveness, not yet. But it was understanding. At least she finally saw it. Ethan reached out a few weeks later. He wanted to meet, not to fix things, but to talk. I agreed. We met at a small cafe near the park where we used to walk our dog. It was awkward at first, both of us unsure what to say. He looked older somehow, tired but calm. "I wanted to tell you," he said softly, "that I'm sorry again. Not for what Vanessa did. She has to live with that, but for what I didn't do. I didn't protect you when I should have." I nodded. "You didn't," I said. There was no anger left in my voice, just truth. But I think we both learned from it. He smiled faintly, a sad but peaceful kind of smile. "Yeah, we did. We talked for a while about small things, work, the weather, how his parents were doing. It didn't feel like closure from a movie. It was quiet, simple, human. When we finally stood to leave, he said, 'You look happy, Madison.' I'm glad." "I am," I replied, and I meant it. I later heard through a friend that Vanessa had moved to another state. She'd lost her job not long after the video came out. Apparently, someone at her office had seen it online after a guest at the dinner leaked it. She tried to start fresh somewhere new. Maybe she learned something from it. Maybe she didn't. But I didn't care anymore. What happened changed me, but not in the way she hoped. That shove, that so-called accident, was the moment I stopped being scared, stopped trying to fit into a family that never wanted me. It was the moment I started standing up for myself. I'm not her victim anymore. I'm the woman who survived her cruelty and came out stronger. And if I've learned anything, it's that family isn't about who shares your last name. It's about who stands beside you when everyone else turns their back. So when I look back now, I don't feel hate. I feel peace. Because that night when Vanessa pushed me, she didn't push me down, she pushed me forward.